Welcome to The Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. Nowadays, social media is becoming a bigger and bigger part of our lives. Besides communication, social media now serves many more functions such as video chatting, multimedia sharing, news publishing, interest groups, and advertising. As social media grows and attracts more and more users, one problem has come to the forefront, namely the censorship of speech. The big social media platforms are involved, and the big tech companies also got their foot in the door. This problem is not new, it has been around for a long time, but since January 6th, the censorship situation has intensified. Former President Trump's social media accounts were first blocked, then a number of conservative accounts and fledgling social media platforms got removed. All these were done in the name of preventing extreme speech that incites violence. Social media, mainstream media, and big tech companies have implemented an automatic censorship mechanism in the US. Their actions are now beyond the government's reach. For example, after Twitter banned Trump, many people, and mostly conservatives, moved to Parler, an up-and-coming platform that embraces free speech. But something unexpected happened. Google, Apple, and Amazon formed a coalition of destroyers. They together killed Parler. Now, it's not clear whether Parler will be able to make its way back to the market. Its lawsuits against the big technology companies were also dismissed by the court. John Matze, the CEO of Parler, got fired on January 29th. According to his memo given to Fox Business, the Parler board, controlled by Rebecca Mercer, decided to immediately terminate my position as CEO of Parler. The memo said, "I did not participate in this decision." On the other hand, Andy Jassy, the head of Amazon Web Services, who dealt the fatal blow to deplatform Parler, just got promoted. The company's CEO, Jeff Bezos, announced on February 2nd that he would step down in the third quarter of this year. Andy Jassy would take over the helm of Amazon's business empire. Jassy joined Amazon in 1997 and has led Amazon's network cloud services division for many years. Of course, the closure of Parler is certainly not by Andy Jassy's action alone. As CEO, Jeff Bezos carries great responsibility. Theoretically, Bezos is stepping down to continue expanding Amazon's business footprint. He will serve as executive chairman of Amazon's board of directors afterwards. Bezos will focus more on his personal initiatives such as the Blue Origin spacecraft, his own foundations, and the Washington Post. Nevertheless, this big tech boss has already been labeled as a supporter of censorship of speech, and his Washington Post carries a bad reputation for its leftist flagship publication. If one of Bezos' missions becomes running the media, then I wonder how much backlash the Washington Post will get from the conservatives. Actually, there aren't many conservative medias in the US. Ever since the nation's top-rated Fox News has turned to the left, conservative voices have been increasingly limited access. Individual conservative media outlets are censoring themselves under the enormous pressure of the leftist backlash. NEWSMAX is the rising TV media after Fox News turned left. Recently, MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, who supports former President Trump, has his personal and company's Twitter account suspended. On February 2nd, NEWSMAX invited Mike Lindell, the MyPillow guy, for an interview of the cancel culture. The cancel culture means that if you don't like a person or a topic, you will erase everything related to that person or that topic. This cancel culture has existed for a long time. It is an extreme form of speech censorship. In the current political context, this cancel culture is primarily aimed at former President Trump, his supporters, and the legitimacy of the 2020 presidential election. MyPillow CEO was invited for an interview on NEWSMAX, but soon after he started talking about a series of problems in the election, and he had 100% evidence to prove it, the host Bob Seller immediately jumped up and said that NEWSMAX could not independently verify Mike Lindell's allegations. Mike Lindell was still speaking, but Bob Seller started to read a pre-prepared NEWSMAX disclaimer aloud in a rude manner. The interview fell apart. Now, on one hand, the interviewee was making his points, and at the same time, the host tried to shut down Mike Lindell's voice by reading a statement out loud. The disclaimer reads, "The election results in every state were certified, and NEWSMAX accepts the results as legal and final. The courts have also supported that view." Mike Lindell said, "You have just suppressed me just like Twitter." Bob Seller responded, "We want to talk about the cancel culture. We don't want to relitigate the allegations that you're making."
Temporary banning rather than permanent?
No, I want it to be a permanent because you know what? They did this because I'm revealing all the evidence on Friday of all the election fraud with these machines. So I'm sorry if you think it's not
Mike,
it's real.
Can I ask our producers, can we get out of here, please? I don't want to have to keep going over this.
Actually,
we at NEWSMAX have not been able to verify any.
You may wonder, how could the NEWSMAX moderator do this? There may be something happening behind the scenes, and with the information we have, we can explain why NEWSMAX was nervous about what Mike Lindell was saying. Before the certification of election results, one big voting machine company was accused of some stuff by multiple media outlets, including NEWSMAX. After the election results were finalized, the voting machine company fought back. The company prosecuted all major conservative media outlets and plaintiffs who had accused them. That includes attorney Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, One America News Network, and NEWSMAX. Some of the lawsuit's claims are over $1 billion. NEWSMAX must have taken emergency measures to correct their stance. Conservative news outlets are also targeted by the cancel culture. NEWSMAX hosts seem to have kept the company's statement handy. Bob Seller was ready to read it out loud when encountering a guest like Mike Lindell. They are afraid of getting into legal troubles. Now, although conservative media are pressured, they have no problem in maintaining operations because of the popularity among followers. For some mainstream media, their operations largely rely on big consortiums. However, without public support and followers, they find it hard to continue. Now, CNN is a very good example. After former President Trump left office, they have no one to point their finger at. The gimmick that attracted part of their leftist audience is gone. According to recent statistics, CNN primetime's ratings fell by 44% during the first week of Biden's presidency. MSNBC primetime ratings also dropped by 20%. Back in July 2018, President Trump once tweeted, "The fake news media is going crazy. They are totally unhinged, and in many ways, when I am no longer in office, their ratings will dry up and they will be gone." Trump's prediction is coming true. In order to save themselves and out of boredom, CNN recently began to criticize the Biden administration. On February 1st, CNN reported in an interview with a CNN-affiliated television station in West Virginia that Kamala Harris said she hoped that the $1.9 trillion relief plan she and Biden were pushing for would pass in Congress. It is to help many families who are experiencing financial difficulties and a quarter of small and medium-sized businesses that are facing closure. She said she would pressure Senator Joe Manchin, a West Virginia Democrat, to support the bill. She also revealed that Joe Manchin would agree to support the bill. The irony is, Harris has not contacted Joe Manchin at all. How could she make decisions for Manchin and say he might support their bill? Although a Democrat himself, Manchin is in a Republican majority electoral district, so sometimes he also votes for Republicans. CNN commented that the case is a weird rookie mistake made by the Biden administration. Joe Manchin was also interviewed by CNN. He complained that Harris went to the state of West Virginia without informing him and pressured him via the interview. Manchin said he did not understand this and criticized it as not the unity that Biden advocates. Before we move on, I once again would like to make two requests. First, our videos are being removed and demonetized, so if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us. Our donor box link is in the description. And secondly, the censorship continues to be excessively restrictive. And if we get shut down, it would be great, as a safety measure, if you would please sign up to our email list. Okay, let's get back into this. The Federal Bureau of Investigation announced on Monday, February 1st, that they have arrested 2 men in Kentucky for allegedly breaking and entering the U.S. Capitol on January 6. The FBI said in a statement that Dalton Ray Craze and Troy Dylan Williams were charged with aiding and abetting unlawfully entry into a restricted place and violently entering the Capitol or disrupting the Capitol. The 2 men told FBI investigators that after hearing the former President Trump's speech, Craze and Williams walked to the U.S. Capitol with a large group of people. When they got there, they saw that several barricades had been brought down and people were entering the U.S. Capitol. They told the investigators in their testimony that they did not encounter any police officers preventing protesters from approaching the Capitol. Williams said that he did not initially intend to enter the Capitol, but only did so after seeing others entering, and he described it as herd mentality. CNN reported various archival records show that many of the participants in the Capitol conflict did not vote in the 2020 presidential election. The 50-year-old retired U.S. Marine Corps member Donovan Krall has been indicted by federal grand jury for vandalism, conspiring with others to launch an attack, and other charges because of his participation in the clash, and is currently in custody. His mother said in an interview that Krall became increasingly dissatisfied with the government during the administration of former President Barack Obama and later became a Trump supporter. However, as a Trump fan, Krall did not vote for Trump in his recent election. The 25-year-old Tennessee man Jack Griffith, who has voted in the 2016 general election and the 2018 midterm election, but did not vote in the 2020 presidential election, neither in Tennessee nor Alabama. Besides those who did not vote in the 2020 election, also include a University of Kentucky senior, Grayson Courtwright, a 65-year-old Georgian man, Grant Moore, who was carrying a large amount of firearms and ammunition in his car, a Louisiana man, Vaughn A. Gordon, who publicly bragged about staying in Capitol for nearly 2 hours, a 21-year-old Missouri woman, Emily Hernandez, who took a snapshot video of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office door sign, and a Florida man, Michael Carrizio, who refused to leave the Capitol after the clash and has a prior conviction for attempted murder. An article from Breitbart reported local Communist Party officials in Xinjiang invited Biden administration officials for a guided tour in the region. Xu Guangsheng, CCP's Deputy Director General of the Publicity Department of the Xinjiang Regional Committee, said they welcome people from fields around the world, including officials from the new U.S. administration, to visit Xinjiang to learn the true situation, but they firmly oppose any investigation with a presumption of guilt. By guilt, the Chinese official is referring to CCP's notorious human rights abuses on Uyghur Muslims in the region, which might be one of the very few things where the Trump administration and Biden's have found a common ground. The Uyghurs are a Turkic Muslim ethnic minority group who live in Central and East Asia, mostly in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkey. The Uyghur community in China are a large percentage of the Xinjiang province, an officially autonomous region where they make up 45% of the population. On the eve of Biden's inauguration, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, after carefully examination of the available facts, declared the Chinese Communist regime has committed genocide and crimes against humanity against Uyghur Muslims in the region of Xinjiang. This move marks one of the Trump administration's toughest stance on CCP's severe human rights abuses. Researchers found more than 380 detention centers were established in Xinjiang since the year 2017. These detention facilities, established under Xi Jinping, are called re-education camps. They have detained 1 to 3 million Uyghurs and other ethnic minority groups for communist indoctrination and slave labor. There, detainees endure extreme torture, rape, and forced sterilization, according to survivors. Within days of the new administration taking office, on January 24th, National Security Council spokesperson Emily Horne told the Washington Examiner, President Biden has called the oppression of the Uyghurs a genocide. The new Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, also agrees with Pompeo's determination of the nature of the crime. To date, Chinese officials have been denying about the ongoing slavery and torture of Uyghurs in the region or anywhere in the country. After the new administration adopted the same rhetoric from the previous to condemn CCP's human rights violation, Yang Jiechi, China's top diplomat, warned Biden not to meddle with the state affairs in Xinjiang in Hong Kong on Monday evening during a virtual event hosted by the National Committee, a New York-based nonprofit organization. One of Yang's message on the U.S.-China relations was, the U.S. should stop interference in the affairs of Hong Kong, Tibet, and Xinjiang, which all matter to Chinese sovereignty and territory integrity. Yang solely blamed the Trump administration for today's gloomy U.S.-China relationship, while ignoring the facts that Beijing had violently repressed Hong Kong protesters and Xinjiang Uyghur minorities during the Trump era. Aside from former President Trump's impeachment by the Democrats, which many Republicans have denounced as a move against unity, in the House of Representatives, a very courageous Republican Congresswoman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, is also being marginalized by the Democrats. This is also contrary to the alleged unity. Greene is a Trump supporter who will not bow down to the leftists. She supports all claims that expose the leftists and does not hide her views. During Biden's first day in office on January 21st, Greene filed articles of impeachment against Biden, making him the president who was impeached right after taking office. She also known for speaking the truth and was named female version of Trump. At present, it can be said that Marjorie Taylor Greene is a loyal Trump supporter, and this makes her a standout. She quickly became a left's target. The leftist media turned up some of her previous postings, claiming that she had hinted at supporting the idea of assassinating Pelosi. But she denied it all, saying that it was a lie that the leftists wanted to use to lay charges against her. Recently, House Democrats have decided to vote on Thursday, February 4th, to remove Marjorie Taylor Greene from House committees, including Budget, Education, and Labor committees. Despite being sidelined by the Democrats in the House, Greene has the support of many voters. By the time we finish recording, the vote had not taken place yet. In contrast, Liz Cheney, the number 3 Republican in the House, has suffered the overwhelming voter protest in her home state of Wyoming for supporting the former President Trump's impeachment. She has also become a target of the Republicans. No matter how outrageously the mainstream media, big corporations, or the Democratic Party behave, which by the way holds almost all the power in Washington, they need support from the American people. The situation is similar all around the world. Public opinion is something the authoritarian power truly fears. That's why they try everything to hide, to censor, and to lie in order to manipulate the public's opinion towards them. But once people learn the truth, all these attempts will be fruitless. That's why we started this program, and we will forever report the truth. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo tweeted again on February 3rd about the threat the Chinese Communist Party poses to the United States. He said not only has the CCP destroyed millions of American jobs, but they're behind the gates. They're lobbying members of Congress. They're working with our school boards and city councils to try and change our way of life. We, along with our allies, must take the China threat seriously. But the current Biden administration in the US has people wondering what will happen if something goes wrong. Now, there is already concern in US media about Biden's recent signing of executive orders. The media is discussing that Biden is experiencing advanced stages of Alzheimer's disease, a condition that may make it problematic for him to even write down a signature. Therefore, some media, such as the Gateway Pundit, quoted professional analyst who said that Biden's wife, Joe Biden, seems to have signed many times on his behalf after he took office, because the differences between the signatures before and after he took office are quite obvious. It is a common occurrence in the Alzheimer's community for family members to handle affairs. At the moment, this allegation is only from certain people's analysis and has not yet been confirmed. If you want to ask Biden about it, you may not get a chance to do so, because Biden often reads a script in front of reporters and then slips away, leaving behind desperate reporters shouting out their questions. Well, that's it for today, my friends. Please like and share, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.